Before we go any further, let's be clear about what this discussion actually is. This isn't just speculation about whether 11 survives the final battle or whether Vecna is finally destroyed. This is an examination of the deeper question Stranger Things has been circling since the very first season, but has never dared to say out loud until now. Can this story truly end while 11 is still alive? Not because she's a threat, not because she's broken, but because her existence itself represents a door that can never fully be closed. This script explores why 11 stands at the center of the final plan, what the upside-down bridge really symbolizes, why Hawkins Lab matters more than ever, and why the possibility of 11's sacrifice isn't shock value, but a horrifyingly logical conclusion the show has been building toward for years. From the outside, Stranger Things looks like a story about monsters, portals, and psychic warfare. But underneath that surface, it has always been a story about systems. Systems that take children, strip them of identity, and turn them into instruments. Systems that don't collapse when villains die, because villains are replaceable. 11 didn't create the Upside Down. She didn't choose to be connected to it. She was made into a bridge long before she understood what that meant. And as Season 5 positions her once again as the key to stopping everything, the show quietly forces us to confront an uncomfortable idea. Stopping Vecna may not actually stop the problem. The final plan makes this painfully clear. 11 returning to a sensory deprivation tank is not just a tactical decision. It's a return to the place where her humanity was first treated as expendable. The tank is where she learned to leave her body behind, where she was trained to disconnect from herself in order to reach others. Placing that tank inside the Upside Down's version of Hawkins Lab is not accidental writing. Hawkins Lab is the birthplace of the entire nightmare. It's where the line between worlds was weakened, where Henry was shaped, and where 11 was conditioned. By positioning the lab directly beneath the exotic matter bridge the group intends to destroy, the story places 11 in the most dangerous narrative position possible, at the center of the wound, holding both sides together. Vecna, meanwhile, is not just waiting on the other end as an enemy to be defeated. He is the end result of the same ideology that created 11. Henry Creel and 11 are products of the same sin, the belief that power can be isolated, amplified, and controlled without consequence. The difference between them is not ability, but response. Vecna internalized his pain and turned it outward, reshaping the world to reflect his suffering. 11 resisted that path, clinging to connection, empathy, and love even when the world tried to reduce her to a weapon. That's why their conflict has never really been about who is stronger. It's about which worldview survives. But here's the part Stranger Things doesn't make easy for us. Even if 11 defeats Vecna completely, permanently, without loopholes, the system that created them both doesn't automatically disappear. Killing a monster does not erase the knowledge that created it. And that's where Kali's perspective becomes dangerous. Not because it's heartless, but because it refuses to lie. Kali doesn't see 11 as a hero or a victim. She sees her as evidence. Evidence that the experiment worked. Evidence that the door can be opened again. Evidence that somewhere, someday, someone will try to replicate what Hawkins Lab achieved. This is where the idea of ongoing experimentation, whether through something like Project Indigo or another unnamed continuation, changes the stakes entirely. The show does not need to explicitly confirm a new program for the implication to be terrifying. History has already done that work for us. Institutions do not abandon breakthroughs. They bury them, rebrand them, and try again later. If 11's blood, DNA, or neurological profile is the missing ingredient that made Brenner's work successful, then her survival becomes a liability not because of who she is, but because of what she represents. As long as 11 exists, the temptation exists. And this is the logical leap Kali makes that the others can't bring themselves to say out loud. The problem isn't 11 as a person. The problem is 11 as proof of concept. You can destroy Hawkins Lab. You can kill Vecna. You can seal the bridge. But as long as the world knows that a child like 11 can exist, the cycle is not truly broken. Someone will try again. Someone always does. This is where the sacrifice theory stops being about tragedy and starts being about choice. 11 has spent her entire life being used by others. by Brenner, by governments, by forces that saw her as a solution rather than a person. Season by season, the show slowly gave her back pieces of herself, her name, her friends, her autonomy. The final season isn't about taking that away. It's about asking what happens when she is the one who decides. Not because she is told she must die, but because she understands what survival might cost everyone else. What makes this possibility so devastating is that 11 does not want power. Unlike Vecna, she has never sought dominance. She wants normalcy. She wants to exist without being needed. That contrast is essential. Vecna chose godhood and became a monster. 11 was forced into power and fought to remain human. Asking her to sacrifice herself would not be a heroic trope. It would be the final injustice of a world that only values her when she's useful. And Stranger Things knows that. That's why the question is never framed cleanly. There is no obvious right answer here. The show has always been careful not to glorify suffering. It believes in connection as resistance. So if 11 does sacrifice herself, it cannot be framed as destiny or inevitability. It must be framed as defiance, a refusal to let the world continue its pattern of exploitation. And if she doesn't, if she finds a way to sever the cycle without dying, then the show is making a different but equally risky statement. That humanity can change, that systems can be broken without demanding a martyr. Both endings carry weight. Both are terrifying in their own way. This is why the ending remains deliberately ambiguous. Stranger Things isn't building toward a clean victory. It's building toward an emotional reckoning. Whether 11 stays behind when the bridge is destroyed, whether she disappears into the upside down, or whether the story leaves her fate unresolved, the meaning is the same. This is not about killing a character for shock value. It's about confronting the cost of ending something that should never have existed in the first place. The real question then is not, will 11 sacrifice herself? The real question is, what does the world deserve? If 11 survives, the future risks repeating its sins. If she doesn't, it confirms that the world never learned how to protect innocence without demanding payment. That tension between hope and consequence, survival and sacrifice, is the true endgame of Stranger Things, not the collapse of the Upside Down, not Vecna's defeat, but a final, devastating choice that forces us to ask whether some doors can ever be closed without losing something irreplaceable on the other side.